All right, so it's the holidays, and I figured this week, I would do a Lightroom holiday-ish tutorial, basically showing you template ideas where you can use holiday graphics, because there's lots of things that you can do, lots of ways where you can use graphics inside of Lightroom, and I hope it kind of spans beyond this week. I hope that the ideas that you learn this week that you'll be able to use all throughout the year. Okay, all right, so the first thing that this does is this kind of starts off, and most of these will start off with some other graphics besides just a photo, okay? And typically they're also going to start off with Photoshop, and you could use Photoshop elements for just about everything I'm going to do this week. But what we want to do here is first I went to a stock photo website, so something like Fotolia.com, iStockPhoto.com, and I did a search for Christmas graphics. This is one of the ones that I found, and you could say, I mean, just for a few dollars, you can download these things and you can use them in your images, especially if you're not going to be printing huge images. You know, the $3 or $5 image will work just fine. Okay, so you're going to download that. It's going to download as a JPEG and just open it up inside of Photoshop. So the first thing that I want to do here is I need to get the white out of this, because you're going to see how we want to use this in Lightroom. We want to put a photo in here. So I need to get the white out of it. So I'm going to grab my magic wand tool, and I'm just going to click on that white background here. And that's going to put a selection on the white background. And then I'll just go to Select, Inverse, and then press Command-J on the Mac or Control-J on the PC. And that's going to put it up right onto its own layer. And then I'm going to just drag the background here, just drag it to the trash can and delete. I'm actually going to keep the background for a second because I want to show you, I want to be able to see how my selection looks. So what I usually do is I just fill it with like a 50% gray. So now I can see how this selection is going to look, especially because I'll eventually put a photo back there. Obviously, we got problems over here. All right, I don't want any of these things over here, so I'm just going to click on that top layer, grab my eraser tool, and I'm just going to erase away that whole portion of the photo. Just get rid of it. All right, don't need it. I don't think it'll add to anything, so we'll just make it go away. Okay, and that looks pretty good. And nobody's going to see. I mean, it looks a little bit different from that, but nobody's going to see. It's still pretty random up there. Okay, and you could also erase away any of those little pieces of snowflakes if you want to kind of clean things up a little bit. You could do that too. Now, the main problem I see is that we have this little white fringe that kind of looks like it goes around the entire image here, where we made our selection of that original white background. You click on the layer that has the fringe. You go to the layer menu, and a quick way to get rid of it, go all the way down to the bottom. It's cut off your screen here, but down to the very, very bottom. It's called matting, and just choose remove white matte and watch what happens. Look at that. See the difference? That's before and that's after. Okay, before, after. So we get rid of that little white fringe that we had around there. And the last thing I would do is double click the thumbnail on the top layer here and just add a drop shadow to it. Let's move the drop shadow over to the top left for angle. And I'll increase my size setting a little bit just to kind of soften it up. All right. Before, after, maybe reduce the opacity a little bit here. But we'll be able to actually see this drop shadow when we add it to our final image. So that's kind of neat because what you're going to see in a second here is we're going to save the transparency of this whole thing. So at this point, I don't need the background. Drag it to the trash can. And now what I have left is this document. So we're going to go to the File menu and save it. So let's go File, Save As. And the only trick here is you have to save it not as a JPEG, but as a PNG file, because we need to save the transparency that's associated with this, and a JPEG won't do it. So let's just call it Holiday Template 1 PNG. Hit save and hit OK. So we're good here. We have our image. I saved it onto my desktop. So now let's go over into Lightroom where we can actually start to use this. Oh, by the way, here I want to show you one other little thing here while we're around Photoshop, because there's so many more things. You don't have to stop here. You could add an adjustment layer to this, and you could change the colors. Now, I think red works pretty good for Christmas, but you know, sometimes you might want a greenish color. You might want to go blue or something like that. So you can change. You can change whatever graphics that you download. You don't need to keep the exact same look and the exact same appearance of the graphics that you download. The other thing you could do is, if you know, this is the image I'm going to put it on, and And there might be some times where the top here encroaches, and you already know it's going to encroach over whatever you want to put it on. Well, then just grab your rectangular marquee tool, put a selection around it, all right, and then just come up here to the layer menu and just choose layer via cut. And what that'll do is that'll put whatever you selected onto its own layer, and now I can move it up and down, so I can kind of get it out of the way if I think maybe it's going to come down in front of the baby's face. And you could do the same thing down here. Okay, so let's go. Let's save that again. Save it, and we'll just call it, I'll just overwrite holiday template 1, PNG, hit save, replace. Sure, I'm good with that. Okay. All right, so now let's hop over to Lightroom. You select the photo that you're going to use. So this first template idea works with watermarks. So let's say I want to save this as a JPEG, okay, and I want to put my template on top of it. Well, what I do is come up here to the file menu, go down to export, okay, and in export, there's a watermarking section. So we just treat this as a watermark. It's like a graphic or your logo or anything that you wanted to put on top of your photos. It's very similar to that. So we're just going to come over here, go choose edit watermarks. And in order to add a graphic, just click graphic up here, click on choose, and let's go ahead and pick our holiday graphic, which I'm pretty sure I saved somewhere. All right. Okay, guys, where did I save it to? I must have saved it somewhere, right? Let's come back here. Let's go back over to Photoshop for a second. I know I saved it. You guys know I saved it. I just have no idea where I saved it to. Oh, I saved it to my downloads folder. Great. It works perfect in there. Let's try it onto my my desktop. Holiday. You could save it wherever you want, but I'll never find it in my downloads folder. There we go. Hit OK. There we go. Okay. So now it will be saved in the proper folder. So when you come over here, just hit choose, and in a second, it's going to pop up onto my desktop. When it's done saving from Photoshop, there it is. Hit choose. And it's going to come in, and this happens a lot. It comes in really small. So all you do is click on one of the little handles and just drag it so it's larger. Okay? And then a lot of times it comes in at a low opacity. So just increase the opacity to 100%, and there you go. Check it out. So you have your own little holiday template on there. And you can move this around. You can even click, depending on the orientation of it, you can click where it's anchored to. So I can center it, I can move it around. It's always going to maintain the aspect ratio. So the only way you can really kind of mess around with this is to come down here and click in these little anchor points down here, and you can move it around if it doesn't happen to fit your image. So we'll just hit save once we get everything in place. I'll call it Matt's Holiday Template 1, just so I can keep track of these things throughout the week. Hit create. And now it's a preset, okay? It's a preset that's going to live there. So the next time that you do this, you don't have to go through this all over again. You already created the graphic once. You already saved it as a watermark. You saved it as a preset. So now every time you can send 10 photos through this, and it'll watermark each one of them just the way that it did this one. Okay, and then we just choose our usual settings here. Where do we want to save it? On the desktop, JPEG, everything. I won't resize. I won't do anything like that. So I'll just hit the export button right now. And Lightroom's going to save it. It's going to attach that graphic on top of it. And let me go ahead and open it in Photoshop for you, just so I can zoom in and show you. But not only did it put the graphic on top of here, but we got the drop shadow. See the little drop shadow that goes along with it? Just gives it a little bit of depth. And you know what? Try it without the drop shadow. Nobody says you have to use the drop shadow. It's just, I think it's kind of neat to add some depth to that. But give it a try both ways, depending on the graphic, depending on what you're doing. The settings may change, the colors may change, but the general idea is there. If you have something that you want to put over your images, really the sky's the limit with that whole watermarking section inside of Lightroom 3. And when you come over here, if you go to a place like Fotolia or iStock, do a search for Christmas or holiday backgrounds, you'll find a ton of stuff like this, especially a ton of stuff with a white solid background, and it's a perfect place to be able to put a photo. Okay? Well, folks, hope you enjoyed. My name is Matt Kloskowski, and I'll talk to you again soon.